Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Law-Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. What's happening, guys? How are you today? How are you today? I know I tried to make it. I tried to make it on time. I did. I put forth the effort. It was just not enough effort. Oh my gosh. Woo! Have we got we've got a show tonight that is going to go on this this theme. This theme that we're working on this week, which is synthesizing philosophy, philosophical approaches to questions with news rather than just grabbing news and talking about it. So, with that, tonight, but it's What the Fuck Wednesday, so we're going to do that too. We're going to do that. We're going to do all of the things. We're going to have unbreaded and all that stuff. So that's all still true. But the preliminary discussion is going to be about this idea of the Me Too movement shifting understandings, shifting definitions of sexual harassment, sexual assault, how those intersect with law in the modern age, and the products of things like the Me Too movement and how they are making it effectively impossible to discern reality. Am I sweaty? No, I just got out of the shower. So my hair's like, I threw some spray shit in there and my hair's just whatever. But that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to be talking about how this sort of burgeoning progressivism, believe all women, hashtag Me Too, again, shifting definitions of what rape and sexual assault are to kind of fit an understanding where those things are useful and where they literally cause problems. And where they cause problems is in the court. And we're going to do so eventually after some pontificating. We're going to get to the jury verdict in the civil case of E. Jean Carroll versus Donald Trump, in which Donald Trump has lost his civil suit and he has been ordered to give $5 million to E. Jean Carroll. All right. So we're going to talk about what this verdict is. And look, I don't care if you like Trump. I don't care if you hate Trump. I don't care what you think about him. We're going to talk in very practical terms about how this jury verdict is basically impossible. Not because Trump couldn't have possibly done it, although that's his defense, but the jury verdict that came out is legally unintelligible. It makes no sense. There's no way to logically come to the conclusion that the jury had to come to. And it's a really weird problem with law and how it works today. And again, with this idea of a modern or progressive understanding of sexual assault, sexual harassment, the traumas that it has. And let me preface, because somebody's going to be annoyed by this. Somebody's going to be annoyed by this topic. And let me preface this out with something very direct. Very direct. There are useful things about, I'm going to use the term not 100% literally, but progressive understandings of sexual assault and sexual harassment. And these are the same. It's not limited to this field. This field gets a lot of play because it's salacious. It's sexy. Everyone loves a good rape. But what it does is allows us to recognize that trauma can exist from things that we might not have previously found traumatic, or that trauma can be uniquely ascribed to individuals when other individuals might not have had similar levels of trauma. This is an important understanding that the idea of penetrative rape is one thing, but there are other traumatic experiences that don't necessarily involve penetrative rape. It's valuable and useful to recognize sort of a shifting humanistic understanding of how these events and traumas can affect people. But the law is not built this way. The law is not built to absorb shifting perspectives and subjective approaches to quote unquote victims. Some people, if we take a reductio ad absurdum approach to this, to anything, people can be unintentionally victimized by their own status. And that's not the fault of the victimizer in the situation. Now, this doesn't just apply to sexual assault or anything like that. But for example, you make a cheeseburger for someone. They say, hey, I want a cheeseburger. You make a cheeseburger. On your cheeseburgers that are special at your grill outs, you've created this fantastic aioli that you put on there because you're gay. So you make an aioli and you put it on your cheeseburgers. You put this on everybody's cheeseburger. Now that person doesn't tell you that they have a food allergy to the Japanese mayonnaise that you use in your aioli. Because who the fuck would think of that, right? You give them a cheeseburger, you don't tell them you make this special aioli with a unique set of ingredients that only you use, and they didn't ask. No one, don't ask, don't tell, right? So you can touch dicks or whatever. They take a bite of this thing and they get an anaphylactic reaction. They're a victim of your actions, but not of your intentions, right? And we understand now that food allergies are maybe a little more prevalent than they used to be. And we have new understandings of how food allergies and sensitivities can affect people, even if like it's not someone dying immediately from a shellfish that they ate, right? There are minor things. This idea of gluten intolerances, lactose intolerances, things like that can just make people uncomfortable. But it's different for each person. One person drinks a cup of milk and they have a stomach cramp. The next person drinks a cup of milk and they shit water. The next person drinks a cup of milk and they could be in a hospital, right? So potentially criminal. Oh man, why are you dropping spicy jokes? Well, I'm trying to make a good point. How you doing, brother? You want to hang out on Friday, man? I'll hit you up. You don't have to answer on stream. I'll hit you up if you're available. But the idea that we can take a more modern approach to food allergies, and all of those things doesn't mean that we start suddenly implicating and leaving liability for people who make, relatively harmless mistakes. Now, this doesn't analogize directly to sexual assault, but it kind of does. It kind of does. Things that we have. Hey, wait, is lead attorney in here too? Is it breast milk? Oh, brother, you know that. I know you know the sweet flavor. I know you know the sweet flavor. How you doing, man? God, we got to talk. We got to talk real soon. I miss you. Full homo. I miss you. Guys, by the way, I have reassessed who is the prettiest law tuber. It is definitely lead attorney. That man is a chiseled statue of gorgeousness with a happy smile, a great sunny disposition. And if you are not following his channel, you need to do it because he talks about important stuff. He's fucking hilarious and he's great. And he's our ambassador to the Black community. I mean, I'm your ambassador to the Black community as a Black, but lead attorney, of course, is the one that they trust. So, But so this idea, though, this idea that we can change our understandings of how things. Tell Avi I said hi. Tell Avi I said hi. I think she and I talked about doing a show, and I definitely want to do that. I've been trying to get caught up on everything here, but okay. So here we go. This idea that we can understand how things impact people in a personal way doesn't always translate to how things need to be applied with liability, civil or criminal liability. Those are serious consequences that involve the deprivation or transfer of property, the deprivation of life or liberty, depending if it's criminal, right? But through the state, the state enforces these things, and that should be wielded cautiously. Sexual assault, sexual trauma is a really interesting field of study because for a long time, rape was very straightforward. If you ram your penis into someone without them asking, that's a raping. That's a rape. Pretty clear thing. But now we're starting to shift into this idea that there are other levels of consent and asking and stuff like that, right? Like maybe there's pressure applied, or maybe there's intoxicants, and we would in a modern area. I say you don't have to ascribe to this. I don't ascribe to all of this. I'm speaking again from this sort of progressive perspective that's been pervasively, another P word, penetrating the legal field and the philosophical field around these subjects lately. But penetrative rape was a thing that was clear. And we all had a picture of what that meant. Someone held someone's arms down, pulled their pants down, and forced themselves inside of them. It's awful. It's one of the nastiest, most horrifying, dehumanizing things you can do to someone. It is unquestionably horrific. And I put these physical rapists in the same category of murderers, because I believe that they do kill something in their victims. All right. But now we start to say, well, a lack of consent is also a rape. Okay, that makes sense if the lack of consent is this forceful idea. But is the lack of consent like just kind of silence on affirmative consent? Some people would say yes. Is the lack of consent a yes, but they're too drunk? So, and you should have known that they're too drunk to consent. Can consent be revoked later? These are the questions we're exploring now. And I want to clarify, I think these are useful questions. I think they're very useful questions, and they're very useful exploratory topics. We need to study how someone who may give consent under one circumstance and change their mind at a later date, how that affects their psyche, how that affects them, how that trauma carries into their interpersonal relationships and their sexual relationships going forward. But can we ever allow revoked consent like a year later to be the basis of a conviction or a civil liability? I mean, I would say no, we can't do that. But there are people who say yes. There are people who say that alone is sufficient. She changed her mind. Well, when? They were drinking. They started out hot and heavy, started having sex. She fell unconscious. He should have stopped immediately. But did he know? Did she consent beforehand? Had they talked about it? Like, what do we do? Well, you can't consent while you're unconscious. But is consent an ongoing thing? I'm not asking, I'm not challenging. I'm posing the questions that are being challenged by society right now. We saw this with the Brock Turner case, the Stanford swimmer, if you don't know who that was. Brock Turner was accused of sexually assaulting a girl because she was way drunk, very drunk, relatively unconscious. And he was, I believe, they came to the conclusion that he had digitally penetrated her, which is not hacking a bank. It is putting your fingers, your digits into someone. But here's the thing. According to Brock Turner's story, and we only really have a he said and no one said, because the girl was blackout drunk and doesn't remember at all. There were no witnesses to any of this other part, but she was walking home with him. She left the bar with him consensually, presumably. He says she consented to some level of activity, and that at some point she passed out during that, and that should have immediately ended consent. And people would argue that she was too intoxicated to consent in the first place. But Brock Turner was similarly intoxicated, maybe even more so. And so the question is, like, where does liability fall when you have two extremely intoxicated parties? Are either of them able to consent? If no one can consent, is it like a math problem? Two negatives, you make a positive? Because if you can't consent on liquor, then half of the sex in this country probably doesn't occur legally, right? So we have these weird problems. And again, they're really useful when you say I was victimized because I my reduced capacity, and I recognize that my regret over the sexual encounter is actually not regret, but it's pain and trauma over the fact that I might have been taken advantage of. But was that person intentionally taking advantage of them? How we rationalize stuff to ourselves doesn't automatically translate to someone else's actions. This is the ultimate conundrum, and why the law is ill-equipped to handle these questions, and why the law must always be straightforward. Because if the law were to shift to a modern understanding where we recognize that a revoked consent can turn something that one thought was consensual into a rape, then we have no law, we have no protection, and we have no definition. We have no standard. There's nothing we can do. No sex is ever safe in that case. No touch is ever safe. And that's the other part of this. We're now recognizing that sexual battery, not rape, not sexual assault and forceful penetration, but sexual battery is something else. And in the Trump case, the judge indicated that even a peck on the cheek, a non-consensual kiss on the face, forehead, shoulder, be a sexual battery. And if that's the case, society runs into issues with people acting in a way that they've acted forever, but being punished in a way that is novel. With that, I'm going to take a moment, let that digest. We're going to read some super chats, just a couple, and then we're going to get right back into it. All right. And guys, I love you. Thank you so much for the super chats, always supporting the show. If you can't super chat, please don't send me an apology about it. Just recognize that you being here and watching the show, I love you. You make my life able to happen by just being here. Super chats are gravy and they're great. And they do allow people to engage in the show. And I love that and would encourage it, of course. But if you can't, please don't ever feel bad about it. So many people are like, sorry, I can't super chat. No, don't be sorry ever. You being here is great. It really helps. So with that, we've got Derek LaRue. He sent a super chat, but YouTube didn't send a message with that. So I don't know. Ellie Fant says, don't get all mushy and gay. No, I have to, Ellie, because when I am raped by chat, I have to be soft. Because if I come across as like hard and uncaring, then people say I wanted it. I dress that way, right? Like my skirt was short for that reason. I'm kidding. Rob Ford 77 says, Crowder name dropped you on his show tonight. They were saying they needed to consult with a legal expert and then mention your name, although I don't know if that's a positive considering his recent publicity. Look, again, I'm gonna stick with my position on the Crowder issue. That video makes him look bad. That video lacks a ton of context. Right? There are questions I have, but I'm not here to judge people based on a fucking divorce. No one, if lead attorney's still there, I assume he would suggest that trying to judge people out of divorce allegations is probably not the way to go. You have two people at absolute odds acting their absolute worst. So yeah. No, I heard he name dropped me, and I have a call with them tomorrow. My day went straight into the fucking gutter today, which is why I'm glad to be here. But everything's fine, by the way. Everything's good. Just a bunch of dominoes fell in the wrong places. and my day was eaten up in a car, but that's okay. It's all good. Driving people around unexpectedly. Paige. Damn. Says, I was raped at 16. I know every detail except the calendar date. My brain has protected me so it has not become an anniversary for me. I trust men, married, but still keep extra 20 pounds on to be safe. She also says, best discussion this week about this, hands down. Thank you, Nick. Oh, we're just getting started. Hopefully I'll change your mind. This will get bad. But look, Paige, I hate hearing those stories, and I hate how prevalent they really are in this country and in the world. Frankly, we live in some darkness, and especially when it comes to sex, because sex is such a crucial and controlling portion of so many people's lives. So I'm sorry to hear that happened to you. I really am. And I'm glad that you are protected from it and you're able to move on. Is the car okay? Yes. Yes, Chaotic Frosty. Everything's fine. No, I just some scheduling stuff happened and I basically had to drive kids around. There was some rescheduling. And when your schedule's like laid out really specifically by day and hour, and then something gets rescheduled, it kind of messes everything up. But so that's that. Okay. We're not on Rumble. We are on Rumble. Rumble's live. What are you talking about? Rumble's doing great. Speaking of which, though, I got to get this Rumble rant from Hartman. Says all the aunts in chat screaming to justify their unwanted forehead kisses on nephews. Yeah, and see, that's such an interesting thing. And this really came to my attention during the Vic Mignogna stuff. Because part of the way this is multi-nefarious thing, right? They've got someone that they need to be a bad guy. So then they say they do something and they phrase it in a way to make it sound worse. But they kept saying non-consensual kisses on the face, when what they're talking about is like a peck on the cheek or a kiss on the forehead. And the non-consensual part was always just, it must have been non-consensual for whatever reason. But that's when I first started noticing this. And I was like, wait, the way they're phrasing this makes it sound like something, but it's not. We understand kissing people on the cheek. Italians do it. Like, look, no one likes Italians, but they do. They yeah, grazie or whatever. And I don't know what fucking word, pepperoni, mwah, mwah, sausage, Canadian bacon, whatever. Those, I picked the two non-Italian top. We understand that is just a gesture of like common affection, not even specific affection, but that can be phrased. It can be phrased as a kiss on the face that is non-consensual. And suddenly you're thinking someone like sucking lips and tongue down someone's mouth, down their mouth without the other person having that. So it's this interesting sort of fucking thing that's been going on. And I started to notice it during the Vic case. And how this translates to today. Let's start getting into the story before I just ramble through this topic forever. How this translates to today is there is a woman who accused Trump of raping her in 1996. Her name is E. Jean Carroll. This rape allegedly happened at a department store. There are no witnesses. Donald Trump says he's never met this woman in his life at this point, and that the whole story is a hoax. Her story is that I believe she came out of a dressing room or something like that. She's in a department store, wherever they are. They're in a kind of a side area of it. Not many people around. He walks up. He grabs her by the pussy, apparently, right? Like, because that's the meme. He unzips his pants and he shoves Trump Tower somewhere between halfway and all the way into her. She doesn't know. This is the story that she has told. All right. But she didn't actually tell that story in 1996. She told that story in like 2019. Trump says, nah, it didn't happen. Now, there are three causes of action here. There's a penetrative sexual assault, rape, kind of our normal understanding of rape. Then there's a sexual battery. Sexual battery entails an unwanted sexual touch. And sexual does not have to mean genitalia. It's like a romantic touch. Think of it that way. It could be a kiss. It could be a breast grab. It could be a leg grab. It could be an ass grab, something like that. All right. And he's also sued for defamation because he calls the whole thing a hoax. So why are we talking about this? He is found guilty by a jury of 2 of those 3 things. Defamation, right? And the sexual battery, but not the rape. He's not guilty of the rape. So here we have a very big problem. Because these aren't separate incidents. So what we have to accept that the jury did here, the jury decided that her story about Trump's penis entering her vagina, or really anything entering her vagina, was not true. But at the same time, her story about him just grabbing the surface of her pubic region is true. And that when Trump says it's all a hoax, that is a lie. And I want to marinate in this concept for a bit because her story is one story and the jury didn't believe part of it. And it's kind of a fucking important part of it. Right? It's an important part to say he didn't put his penis in her, but the rest of the story is true. That's a crazy, crazy concept. Holy shit, we got a big locals chat here from Lord Boffins. Says, hey, Recruiter, just wanted to send this as a small thank you. Your streams kept me in good spirits while I was working my ass off so my girl could quit her job and take care of her dying father. Worked out well for me, though, as I used the motivation to start my own business. Guess who doesn't have to work anymore? Also, first time I can watch a live stream because I'm sick as fuck. So take a shot for me, big boy. I got you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Now, importantly, for the people who say this proves that Trump did this, this does not. This is a civil trial. 51% is all that's needed. 51% probability is all that's needed. In a criminal trial, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Trump is not criminally charged here. They would have a real fucking tough time landing it. And we're going to get into one of the reasons why in just a second. Dude, I got rid of your name. Who the fuck was that? Lord Boffins. To you, sir. Thank you very much for the very generous donation on locals. Much obliged. I'm glad things are working out for you. I'm glad you've got your own business and you don't have to work as hard anymore. Cheers, brother. Yeah, technically not 51%. Anything above 50%, yes, but 51% is kind of an easy way to say it. So Trump's got this thing now where a woman accused him of putting his penis in her, said, well, he didn't do that, but he must have grabbed her by the pussy. And let's not forget that what was admitted into evidence is that Access Hollywood tape where Trump says to Billy Bush, just grab him by the pussy. Just walk up. You just walk up. They love it. They love to. Terrific. They're wonderful. They love having. Sorry, I thought a kid was about to walk in my room. They love having vaginas grabbed, the labias, how it pours through your fingers. Wonderful. No, so they play the Access Hollywood tape. That gets admitted into evidence. And I think now we get to see where that starts to square on how this went down. Well, Trump must do that. I'm not willing to say he's a rapist, but he must do that because he said this thing at a completely unrelated time in a different context or whatever. Okay, cool. But this is only part of the problem. We have an unintelligible jury verdict, but part of the reason it's unintelligible is this. New York recently passed a statute that removed or greatly extended the statute of limitations for sexual assaults. Remember, this happened in 1996, according to E. Jean Carroll. This should have been litigated by no later than 2002 under the old statute, probably by 1998 under the old statute of limitations. The idea that we are now 1996 to now is what, 27 years later? We're 27 years after the fact. Who's a witness to this? How do you even find witnesses? There's no surveillance footage. There's no security guard. There's no one in the mall there who can even verify if Trump was there. None of these people have any way to verify either side of this story. But of course, the burden should always be on the accuser. She says Trump did this. Prove he was even in the department store. Do you have one person saying he was there? No. What you've got is two people that she allegedly told the story to who happen to be her friends. Who knows when she told the story? Who knows if the story was ever true? But now, how does anyone defend against this thing? And Trump made some missteps in this case. He is not off the hook for me. Trump fucked up colossally in this case in one way, which we're going to talk about. Trump always maintained that he wasn't even there. But Trump didn't show up in court. Trump didn't show up in court. And here's the problem with that. I get it. You don't want to show up. It's completely frivolous. It's bullshit. You don't want to give credibility to the process. Trump's a busy guy. All of those things. I agree with all that. But defamation cases and sexual assault cases are about the individual credibility once you get to a trial of the people involved. We saw Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. If Johnny Depp had just said, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna send in a video testimony. I'm not gonna testify in person," do you think Johnny Depp would have won that case? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. And if Trump shows up, does he win the case? Not necessarily. But E. Jean Carroll was there in court, questioned for 3 days, crying, the victim, in front of these 9 sympathetic jurors, sitting there, identifying with her traumatic rape experience that she wouldn't talk about for 25 years, and then wrote about it as publicly as fucking possible, or whatever. But Trump didn't show up. He didn't give the jury a chance to assess his credibility. Now, they probably have their minds made up on Trump. It's Southern District of New York, right? These people don't like him. As a rule, they're probably not going to, stick up for Trump. But if he had showed up, maybe he would have been able to sell 1, 2, 3 jurors on the story with his own credibility versus hers. My opinion, that helped his conviction. Now, again, it's very likely Trump was going to get, or not convicted, but his loss, we'll say. Civil court. There's no convictions here. There's no convictions in civil court. That's one of the most true fucking lawyer statements I've ever said by accident. There are no convictions in civil court. Holy shit. But, yeah. Does Trump showing up guarantee a victory? No. not in any way. But it is a better shot because you do have to identify with the jury. And if you're not there, the other person is. And the jury's going to identify with the person in front of them. It's easier to empathize with a body than a fucking video every single time. Unless that person's really fat. I didn't think about that. Then, yeah, you could shoot it at an Instagram angle if you're a fat person. That's true. Don't drag your Jabba the Hutt sloth, slippery, fat, sweating ass into court if you can Instagram angle your testimony. That's the only time, though. That's it. If you're Gorlock the Destroyer or whatever, and you can somehow hide all of those chins, do that. But everybody else, on this type of thing, where it's credibility of the alleged perpetrator and the alleged victim, you got to show up. But all this was made possible by this recent change to New York law, which it either greatly extended or effectively eliminated the statute of limitations. Why is this important? Statute of limitations exists for a very, very fucking critical reason. Evidence decays. Evidence disappears. Evidence changes. Evidence can be manufactured. All of these things happen. And the longer the time window, this is why statute of limitations exists. The longer the time frame, the more likely it is that the evidence is not going to be genuine and correct. The more likely it's going to be manipulated, additive, subtractive, misunderstood, lost, destroyed, inaccessible, embellished. Hold on. My locals is doing something really amazing, and I love them for it. Locals is bringing back Ass Wednesday. It's been gone, but not forgotten. Locals, you're my people. You're my people. And I feel it up here and in my balls. And in my balls. I love you for bringing back Ass Wednesday. Always bring Ass Wednesday back. It is fucking great. By the way, if you want to experience the glory of Ass Wednesday, ricadalaw.locals.com. We can take serious subjects about sexual assault and turn them into women in men, I guess. If you want to post men, don't. But in various states of cheeky poses. So there you go. With all that said, the statute of limitations is supposed to be a shield from an unfair or unjust prosecution. And E. Jean Carroll even said that this law is the only reason that this lawsuit exists is because this is why she was hoping to utilize this removal of the statute of limitations to weaponize it against Trump. And of course they want to weaponize everything against Trump. There's an election coming and they're scared of him. John Wick says statute of limitations had expired. Can a law unexpire statute of limitations that had already expired? Yes. As far as we have seen, yes, it's done plenty. It's been done plenty of times. That is true. It doesn't change the fact that the act itself was illegal at the time. And that's an ex post facto law. To make an illegal act or to make a legal act illegal and then prosecute on that new illegality, that's an ex post facto law. That's a bill of attainder. Merely upping the statute of limitations, the statute of limitations is not a constitutional issue. It maybe should be, but the statute of limitations is something created by Congress. Without a specific law created by Congress, the statute of limitations doesn't exist. And lawsuits have no statute of limitations. There is no default number that Congress is manipulating here. So yes, a statute of limitations modification after the expiration of the statute still allows people to use the new statute. That's how it goes. So that's and it's not fair, correct? That is very true. It's not fair, but it is law. So does Alex Jones play Trump fucked him in the ass? Give Jones a solid suit? His video is crazy. Wait, did Jones say that? Or he was making a point, right? Like he didn't say that with any level of sincerity. Right? He just he's making a point, I'm guessing. But yeah, so this is the problem though. Let me bring this all together, wrap all these topics into one, synthesize it, and then we'll start looking at some stories about this Trump lawsuit because I think it's really important. I think it's critically important, actually, on this subject. But the idea is we have a shifting understanding of trauma in general, sexual trauma, physical trauma, mental trauma, emotional trauma, from any number of things. We're constantly learning more about the human body, the human mind, and the human condition are altered by things that happen to us. Right? We're constantly learning more about that. And that is exceedingly useful. Exceedingly useful. Because learning what makes humans tick is kind of fucking important to being human and to figuring out how we deal with the things that happen to us. And I don't know if any of you guys have been through any significant trauma. I know some of you have, obviously. Paige super chatted about it. I'm sure some of you have mentioned it as well. But like going through trauma, it profoundly affects you for the rest of your life. And understanding that trauma and the source of it is kind of one of the critical steps to overcoming the debilitating natures of it. So that's all really fucking important. But we can't just have no standards in law. And that's what we're getting to now. The Me Too movement has created this case where the accuser is right, the accused is guilty until proven innocent. And that cannot be how we do anything. It's an impossible way to run a legal system. We cannot have you be guilty from the accusation. And today is all about guilt by accusation. It's not guilt by association anymore. It's guilt by accusation. The accusations are enough to ruin careers, to ruin marriages, to ruin lives, to drive people to suicide, to drive people to homelessness and poverty. And we have to be fucking careful with it. But the Me Too movement took advantage of the idea that people want to protect women. Because we do, guys, we want to protect women. As much as they may piss us off today, right? In this modern man versus modern woman thing. We're biologically wired for that protection aspect of it. We get dopamine hits from protecting and providing for women. Our bodies are made to do it. We literally reward ourselves for what many today would call simping. Why do you think simping is so fucking prevalent? Why do you think OnlyFans works so well? Those things feed back into our brains and tell you, good boy. And they give you a head pat. Even if the chick doesn't lay her tits on your head, her virtual tits are on your head. And that's enough for a day. And then you do it again and again and again because it's exploitative, but that's the whole thing. We're conditioned to do this. And so understanding how this affects women and how it affects men is critically important. But applying it to law means that we take a legal system, we imbue it with the power of government, and we wield it against an alleged perpetrator. And our modern understandings would say, oh, well, if he just put his hands around her waist, then that's a sexual battery. But our modern understandings also say if you go on Twitter and say that he's a sexual batterer, that destroys his life, even if there was no sexuality involved. So this is the we're in. This is the conundrum we're in. But let me pull up these articles from this. So I want to pull up this one. This one was before the trial was effectively over. This is Trump's lawyer during the trial. He was wrong on this. But I want to bring this up because this is part of the issue. So here we go. Game, set, and match. Trump's lawyer shows jurors message he calls lethal to E. Jean Carroll's case. He was wrong about it being lethal, obviously. Al Bass says, B-ass Wednesday. That's something I can get behind. Bass Wednesday. Dude, yeah, bring it. Bring it. I love bass. Drum and bass. I'm good. Dum, dum, dum. Anyway, so here we go. Throughout the course of this trial, former President Donald Trump's attorney has endeavored to discredit three women, not only rape accuser E. Jean Carroll, and it's written by Law and Crime, and you can see how this is discredit three women, not only rape accuser. Like he's got to discredit. Well, yeah, that's kind of the thing you have to do if you're in a trial and someone is like, and it relies on the truthfulness of someone. Is that if they're lying, you have to damage their credibility. But okay. I love that. So that's good. The defense theory of the case is that Carroll fabricated the story and that two of her friends, Lisa Birnbach and Carol Martin, concocted false corroboration that the Ask E. Jean columnist told them about that alleged sexual assault contemporaneously. Carroll claims that Trump raped her inside the dressing room of a Bergdorf Goodman, likely in the spring of 1996. She doesn't actually know when it happens. She doesn't actually know when it happens. It might have been 95. Who knows? Daedalus says, I'm fat and need to walk, but I'm thinking about not doing it. Shame me. Hold on. We'll get back to this Trump story. We just got something very, very important. Very, very important. You're thinking about not walking. You're fat and you need to walk, but you're thinking about not walking. You're fat. You haven't thought about not walking ever. Not walking is your natural, slovenly, disgusting state. Mountaining, occupying the Earth's space, increasing gravity. That is what you're doing. You're not thinking about not walking. To think about not walking, you have to think about walking. And for you, thinking about walking means lifting your fat ass against the colossal cosmic force of gravity and putting one melting ham leg embarrassment in front of the other and hoping that the world doesn't snatch you back down. Because if you fell, you would crater the very fucking ground you're attempting to walk on. Man, get your ass up and walk. Do it. But most important, stop eating. I know, because what you're going to do, I know you. I know fat people. You're going to go, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do my walk. And then you're going to reward yourself with 6 boxes of Oreo cookies dipped in strawberry milk, right? Like, oh man, I walked all the way to the fridge. No, stop eating. That's the key. You got to stop eating. Just walk. But stop eating first. All right. Anyway, thank you, brother. Thank you very much for the super chat. Get your goals, man. Go hit them. Okay. Back to this. On Monday, Trump's attorney, Joe Tacopina, I kept reading that as tapioca, displayed an email from Martin that he called lethal to Carroll's case. So this is one of her friends who she allegedly told contemporaneously. But we don't have any evidence that she told him in 1996. And they're friendly. So maybe she's just like, I need your help. On Monday, that's the implication they're trying to raise. We don't have evidence either way, but you can make your own decisions. That's what juries do, by the way. Juries are finders of facts. They're supposed to determine the credibility of witnesses. They're supposed to determine if there's more to the story or less to the story than what's being told. The message dated November 30th, 2021 shows an email that Martin sent to a third party after her friend Carroll decided to file sexual battery claims under New York's Adult Survivors Act. It's too hyperbolic, Martin wrote in the message, according to the exhibit. Too much celebratory stuff over something that hasn't really happened. She said next she's going to sue Trump when adult victims of rape laws passed in the New York state or something. What the fuck? What the fuck? After displaying the message to the jury, Tacopina declared it was game, set, and match. And I think that's a pretty fucking important email. It shows that one of the corroborating witnesses seems to have doubts about the credibility of the accuser. She's going to accuse him of this stuff? What the fuck? So that's why he thought game, set, match. And that's what he said to the jury. But of course, you project to the jury. That's part of what you do. WMMAC now says, Nick, tomorrow's the 8th anniversary of my brother's unsolved murder. Fuck. Drew Molinari shot at his place of work in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania on a sunny Monday morning, not asking for a toast, just keeping the memory out there. 8 years, no closure. Fuck, that sucks. That sucks. Very sorry to hear that. You said no toast. I won't toast. But I am going to have a sip of whiskey, and I'll throw up a little silent prayer for your brother. If anyone wants to join me in that. And a prayer for justice and hopefully finding the perpetrator. All right. Back to this. So Tacopina grilled Martin on some of its contents during her testimony, but not all of it, quietly entering it into evidence. The lawyer then unveiled the full messages towards the code of his summations. Yeah, this is smart. He didn't want her, so you get the whole email into evidence, but you ask her about various parts of it because you don't want her to explain away the part that you think is important. Drew Molinari was the name. Dazzla Darren asked who the name was. Drew Molinari. So during rebuttal summations, Carroll's attorney, Michael Ferrara, noted that Tacopina never asked Martin to talk about what she meant by something that hasn't really happened. When Martin took the stand, that's because the phrase referred to the law, which hadn't yet been passed and ultimately allowed Carroll to pursue her case by suspending the statute of limitations. I don't buy that explanation, frankly. The tone of that email is she's actually going to sue Trump. No way. It's too hyperbolic. And the story is way too hyperbolic. I mentioned this about Amber Heard. People are recognizing it. Now, it worked out in this case, but sort of. Actually, no, her hyperbolic story didn't win the day. Amber Heard's story about being raped with a Maker's Mark bottle by Johnny Depp was so fucking outlandish that no one could believe it because nothing happened that you would expect to happen in the wake of that horrific event. She can go to a hospital. She didn't seem to have any first aid at all. She seemed just fine, according to the testimony. And this is a horrific incident. That hyperbolization is so prominent in the Me Too movement. And that's kind of the contrast here. It is prominent to hyperbolize things. Say a kiss on the face rather than a peck on the cheek, right? As we talked about earlier. But if it gets too crazy, people aren't going to believe it. Now, in this case, they just did. They believed it. So great. Good job, I guess. But yeah, so now we have earlier on Monday, Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, skewered Trump's claims that Carroll, Bernbach, and Martin conspired against the former president for political reasons, referring to Trump's claim as the big lie in a nod to something we can't talk about on YouTube because YouTube is gay. Neither Bernbach nor Martin have disguised their disdain for Trump, but both testified they would not lie about him to damage him politically. Well, of course not. No, they openly hate someone. But can you imagine saying that with a straight face? Like, think of the person you hate the most, the worst person in your life, and go, but I'd never lie about them ever. ever, under any circumstances, to destroy them? You wouldn't say anything? I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. In 2017, let alone perjure themselves in that effort, sure. In 2017, Martin referred to Trump as as Orange Crush. It's kind of funny. In an email mocking the then president for botching the name of the country Namibia as Nambia. Later on in the email chain, Martin wrote, as soon as we're both well enough to scheme, we must do our patriotic duty again. Both Carroll and Martin described that as simply colorful language. Martin testified that she was referring to a quirky present she wanted to give to Carroll, a stuffed squirrel. Scoffing at that response, Tacopina told jurors, scheme is exactly what you think it means. Some 2 years later in 2019, Carroll first publicly revealed her allegations in an excerpt of her book, What Do We Need Men For?, published in New York Magazine. I mean, I should tell you what's going on here and why this happened. It was literally publicity for the fucking book. Whenever you want to find out if something is on the up and up, just see if the person has a book tour going when they say it. Her account received widespread media scrutiny, including by New York Times journalist Megan Twohey. Providing an update on the news article, Carroll told Bernbach at the time that I turned over the entire book to you when I got sick. We agreed you would publish it when I croaked, and you never read it. Carroll said this referenced the fact that she fell seriously ill and was in intensive care. In 2022, after retaining counsel, Martin sent Carroll a message, no more chats and texts until further notice. Stop giving me the narrative, because she just told her, like, oh, yeah, remember when I sent you the manuscript, but you were too sick to read it, so you just didn't? The Trump attorney scornfully added, that's Crip talk, referring to the gang. Nice. Ferrara praised Tacopina as a good lawyer, adding that he knows how to cherry pick the transcript and exhibits. Well, that's what all lawyers end up doing. But Ferrara added that the story rests on the notion that the three accomplished women risked torching their reputations and committing a crime to bring down Trump in service of a harebrained scheme. Their reputations are not at all at risk. Let's put this fucking clear. First of all, E. Jean Carroll said her reputation was already destroyed by Trump, so that's one out. But the other two, a Me Too allegation does not ruin reputations. In fact, I don't think any Me Too alleger is out of the industry, even when they've been found to be untruthful. Even if they've been found to be untruthful, none of them have suffered consequences. That's the fucking problem. It's entirely positive, because even if you get blown out in every court, in every news story, or whatever, you can say that's just the patriarchy, fam. Amber Heard, though, what damage did Amber Heard have? They still write articles about her every day. I see them in my newsfeed. We like to think that Amber Heard's somehow not doing something. Is she even trying? Like, is she trying to get roles? I saw a picture of her running the other day. She looked horrible. Can Bergdorf sue them for the false rape claim? No, a false rape claim, or like that would be outside the statute of limitations, Breck. Or wait, no, I guess not, because she made it in 2019 or whatever. So maybe, I don't know. Okay, here we go. Back to this. Bernbach is the author of more than 20 books, and Martin is a local TV anchor woman. Both of them delivered their testimony under oath, and the man calling them all liars, the former president of the United States, was absent from the courtroom throughout the trial. Ferrara said repeatedly and repeatedly, and that is fucking important. Like, I know people said Trump would have been found guilty anyway, and that may be true. That may be true, but his absence is important. Both of them delivered their testimony under oath. Trump did under oath too, but it was by video. And video, people don't watch the videos. Video testimony is terrible. Wait, Amber Heard announced her retirement from Hollywood? Oh, okay, good. Great. But that's not her being blacklisted. That's her choosing. Okay. We've got more to talk about on this subject, a little bit more getting into today's stuff, the jury verdict and stuff like that. And then we'll wrap it up. We're going to do What the Fuck Wednesday. But first, I have to tell you about the sponsor of the show. It's not who you think it is today. It is fucking hell. I got to get the website pulled up. COVIDtaxrelief.org. Tax season came and went for us plebeians, right? Us normal people. But tax season for business is year round because you set your tax date on corporations. This is funding from the government. It's earmarked money. It's earmarked money for people who stayed open through COVID. Now, did you want to stay open through COVID because the government? No, you wanted to stay open because that's your livelihood. That's your business. You maintain some employees. Well, the government realized what kind of fucking shit they put us all through, even though, they never overtly say it. And they created a fund where you can get up to $26,000 per employee. And COVIDtaxrelief.org is a group of experts. And what they do is they figure out what you can get. They do all the paperwork. They do all the compliance. They make it happen. You don't pay a dime until you get paid by Uncle Sam. And then they take a percentage off the top, sort of like a lawyer's contingency fee. That's what they do. COVIDtaxrelief.org is there to help you as a business owner save your time and focus on what you do well, which is your business. You have your business, you have your employees, you have your inventory, you have your payroll. You do all of those things that you do. These guys come do what they do, and that is qualify you for a program. There's money earmarked just for you. Doesn't matter if you got a PPP loan. There's all sorts of stuff. COVIDtaxrelief.org. These guys will help you out and let you know if you're entitled to any money from the government. And I know many of you are capitalists or libertarians or whatever, but the government is spending that money, whether it's on you or some fucking idiot. So let them spend it on you because you're going to reinvest it wisely. All right. So that is COVIDtaxrelief.org. Big thank you to them for sponsoring the show. With that, what we're going to do now, we're going to read the rest of the super chats on YouTube. We're going to move over to Rumble exclusive. We're going to finish up the show on Rumble. Then we're going to do a live show on Locals. A normal night, so to speak. Here we go. Mario Carter 13 says, we, the jury, find Orange Man guilty of being bad. Correct. Catherine K, welcome to Paralegal. Killer King says, hashtag not me, hashtag doubt all women. Damn. JC says, is the modern day Me Too like the DOD sharp policy? I've heard of too many sharps in the army where it destroyed people's careers without merit. I don't know what the DOD sharp policy is. Let's look that up real quick. That's very interesting. Sexual harassment, assault response, and prevention. Oh, yes, 100%. I don't have to look anything other than what the acronym means. Yes, it's the same thing. And same with Title IX, right? Like it's these ideas that you get these things that defer to the accuser, but that's not how our legal system's supposed to work. We're supposed to defer to the accused, and we don't anymore. Sean Bailey says, Tacopina using case for a test prelim to brag, played go along to get along, smackdown. No way Trump will get a fair trial in New York City. The whole trash can at Bragg. That's all animals understand. And Yamazaki, 12-year-old for the win. Yeah, Yamazaki 12 is great. Try Yamazaki 17 if you ever get a chance to go fucking smooth. The 12 is a staple. The 17 is a special occasion. But yeah, here's the yes. It's believe all women. It's all this stuff. It is we will believe the victims and we will no longer respect the rights of the accused. It's just gone. It's a fucking shame. It's impossible. How do you live when you have no rights as an accused? If someone came up and accused you of sexual assault 12 years ago, tomorrow, would you even know where you were? Like they'd pick a random date and the only hope you'd have is that you happen to be in another state and you posted a picture on Facebook or something. That's it. That's it. Seg 162 says, do you know any cases of a successful double conviction, finding of liability where both parties charged the other with sexual assault because they were both drunk when they had sex? No, I'm not aware of any. I hope one exists. Angel Australia says, sorry, can't super chat. Liar! Liar! Liar. Kevin Dorr says, watched Robert G's coverage of the Trump e-gene. To me, the real story was the biased judge and his outward hatred of Trump and his lawyers. Well, we're not even talking about that. We don't want to acknowledge that that's a real part of the legal system because that's depressing. And we're here to be happy. How fucking dare you? Why would you do this? I'm trying to be happy. Let's see. Okay. Jacob Spilnick says, change my mind. HG Tudor is wrong about Crowder having NPD as per evidence presented in video series. If diagnosed NPD by doctors, is Stephen a male Amber? Narcissistic personality disorder? I don't know if Stephen has narcissistic personality disorder. I just think that online and TV personalities tend to have, they probably score high on narcissism, right? Like you have to get in front of a bunch of people all the time. You have to be confident enough in yourself. Let's see. Not an FBI says, have you seen the fool trying to sue YouTube claiming Russia controls YouTube after doing a false copyright? Nope. Ethan Brazil. How much would Joe owe the kids for sniffing their hair if unproven batteries get you $5 million? Massive amounts, I would think. I mean, that's trauma for very long times. A lot of times it's in public. Like I'd make fun of those kids if I were their age. John says, sorry, I can't afford to buy a super chat. I just purchased a $3,000 Alant Gentil puppy. Plus your channel's really gay. Please accept my apology. Apology accepted. Gay. Not an FBI says, isn't it covered by just the tip law? Yes. Just the tip law is real. Contrarian 420 says, sorry, I can't afford a $5 super chat with a $2 one. Thank you. Nazir says, you need to do what Lead does and add a Cash App, bruh, and read them out. Mas dinero, mama huevo, cabron. I've thought about that. I think I might actually do that because I am kind of tired of giving YouTube money. And I know people are too. Jesus Davila gifted a membership. Sailor Mercury says, Trump's response during the town hall was great. Maybe we'll watch that. Game Fossil gifted 20 memberships. Holy shit. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's awesome. Gotta love locals. Salt A says, hey, Nick, please send prayers as my grandmother passed away while being on vacation. I'm grateful that we got to have a great relationship. God bless her. 74 years in caring and love and loving life. A cheers to your grandmother, Salt A. Losing a grandmother it's a special thing. Not in the good way, in the longing and loss way. They're these features of your entire life. They teach you things, but most importantly, they love you when maybe your parents don't, or maybe your parents don't understand, or your parents are at work or busy or whatever. Your grandparents are there to just be like, hi, I love you. Come hang out. Come do it. So I cheers to your grandmother and your relationship with her. I'm glad you had it. I wish it lasted longer. Kate C, aka Snake Plush Kitten, says, would they scheme to embarrass Trump? Probably not. Would they scheme to get $2 million? It's a whole other question, isn't it? Whole other question. All right, guys. That's it for YouTube. We are going to go to Rumble exclusive. Like I said, we're going to wrap up the Trump stuff here. We're going to one or two more articles to kind of talk about it a little bit more. And then we're going to go into What the Fuck Wednesday in a little bit. But I do have some other articles to maybe share too that are kind of like periphery topics that might get more play tomorrow. But I'm thinking of having a guest on tomorrow. We'll see. Anyway, here we go. Let's say fuck off to YouTube. Hey, YouTube. Fuck you.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen,